Hi there, this is Phil with Phil Effects. I've got another Harmony tutorial. Today I'm going to walk through a tutorial on how to animate a basic pendulum. Animating a pendulum is one of the classic kind of exercises as an animator you want to learn how to do and want to learn how to do well. And so I've got a rig that I've made for the class, and we're going to use just the animate on the graphics. This rig actually comes three different ways where we can animate using deformers, we can animate with pegs, or we can animate just animating the geometry. I'm going to keep it simple today, so we're just going to use the rig where we animate on the geometry. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you want to do in animating anything is you really want to develop a habit where you learn to block things out. Blocking things out using either in 3D they call it stepped keyframes, or in Toon Boom Harmony they call it stop motion keyframes. It's really the best way to start, so you can go in and get a good handle on how the motion and the timing of your initial animation is working. And then once you've solved that and it's to your liking, then you can go in and start putting in splines and have continuous motion where Harmony is going in and it's interpolating the keyframes, and then you can work with the easing and things like that. If you start with that, it just makes your life a whole lot more complicated from the beginning, because you have too many things moving and it's very difficult to separate basically see the trees through the forest here. And so this is a much easier way to get things set up. So let's get started. So one of the first things you want to do is we want to make sure that our animation is set up for stop motion keyframes. So you go up into the animation and you click on stop motion. That will make all of the defaults keys that we add stop motion keyframes. All right. The next thing is we want to go in and take our rig and place it in the initial position that we want to start with. So I'm going to select our pendulum, and I'm going to take and move it, and I want to put it, I'm going to start with it right about here. Okay, so that sets our first keyframe, and it's a stop motion keyframe. And initially what I want to do is just key the top level pendulum, the top level part. I don't want to put keys on the joints going down, and that'll make more sense later, but initially we just want to set things up with keys on the top. So our animation is going to be at 24 frames a second, and we want to do about 3 seconds with a little bit of overlap. And so our next keyframe will be out at frame 24. So I'm going to take the playhead and go out to frame 24, and I'm going to place then my object, the pendulum, where I want it in my scene at frame 24. So I'm going to go up and we'll just take it and we'll move it and put it there. And what we can do, if we want to, we can see the path that I've done. So I can go up here and say show controls, and we can see the path. Now you notice there aren't any tick marks. Okay, there aren't any tick marks on here for a very good reason, is we're using stop motion keyframes. And because there's stop motion keyframes, there is no interpolation between my first key and my next key 24 frames later. When we change this to motion keyframes, you will see that keys are added. But for the moment, this actually looks correct. You won't see interpolated keyframes in between because essentially there are none. So we have our first key, our second main key. Let's go out to 48, frame 48, and I'm going to move this over to here. And we'll go out to frame 62, 72, 48. Yeah, frame 72 will be the last one, and then we come in and we go down here. My tutorial. All right, so now we have our basic framing set up. So let's go ahead and play this. For what I want to do, I think this looks good for a starting point. And so I've set these initial keyframes up. The next thing I want to do is put our breakdowns in. Now, a breakdown keyframe is typically between two main key poses. And it is usually used because you're making some transitions or something that is happening in that particular sequence that you want to have a little more control over. In this animation, I'm going to put it midway through, which is at frame 12. It doesn't always end up being at the midway from a timing standpoint. Like I said, for this animation, that works out to be the best place, but that's not always going to be the case. So for what I want to do, though, I'm going to place it there. So let's take this at frame 12, and I'm going to put this right about here. And that's one of the nice things with showing the path. I can see the path that I'm making, and I can put it right here. And this is where having this keyframe in the mid path helps, because now I can make kind of a swooping up motion with the path that my pendulum is taking. All right. So we've set that keyframe there, and now I want to go midway between this keyframe and this one, and that's right at 36 is the midpoint. And on this one, I'm going to make it rise up just a little bit. I don't have a completely symmetrical path, but that's actually on purpose. It adds a little interest. So we come down to here, and then our next breakdown is going to be right at frame 60. And I can put that about right here. That looks good, I think, for what I want to do. And then we have our final keyframe here. So now let's take a look at that. All right, so I'm satisfied with that. So now is the point that we want to start adding the keyframes to the rest of the tail. We're still in stop motion keyframes, so let me swing this down, and we want to start at the 0 position, so we need a key on every single one of these. So I'm just going to go down and select all 3 of these and say keyframe plus, and that puts a keyframe on all 3 right at the start. Okay, at the next, let's block this thing through. So we get to this point here, and the pendulum has started to move in this direction, right? And because it's starting to move in this direction, we're going to have drag on the bottom part of this pendulum. And so the bottom part of the pendulum is going to start to slide this way, right? So we want to start and block in those transitions. Now those are going to be rotations, they're not going to be transforms. So at this point, I want to take this top part of the pendulum and I want to put in a rotation on it. And I'll go the next joint down, and I'm going to put a rotation on that, and the next joint down, and I'll put a rotation on that. So if we jump between the two, we can see the rotation initially hitting on that. Okay. All right. So then we want to jump to the next keyframe, which is up here. And what's going to happen is we will be adding some ease. So the pendulum is going very fast right here. It started slow, came up very fast, and so we're going to have quite a bit of swing here. But then as it comes into this point, it's going to be easing in, so it's going to slow down. And because it's slowing down, this pendulum is going to start to elongate. And it'll get maybe close to a straight line, but not quite. All right? So when we get to this point, I want to go back up to my start up here, and I'm going to rotate this back this way. and then work my way down and work my way down. Let me undo that. I don't want to. Be sure that you're just working the rotations. That's the only transform that you want to do on this. You don't want to be stretching it. There's no squash and stretch. We're just doing rotations. So that looks pretty good. So then let's go to the next part here. We go to the next keyframe, and now we're sliding this way. So your pendulum is going to start making a swinging motion this way. Now it's going a shorter distance, so it won't pick up as much speed going from here to here as we did going from here to here. So the extent that the bottom of the pendulum swings out is going to be a little bit less, and we can reflect that with the amount of rotation that I put on it going down the chain. So I'll take this, put that there. Now you can see going forward the reason why initially I didn't put keys on the bottom part of the pendulum. If I put keys on the bottom part of the pendulum going all the way down, then out here in these other keyframes, the pendulum would be just straight down, and then I'd have to go in and I'd have to rearrange that. Because I haven't put them in, when I go to the next block that I want to keyframe, I'm seeing the previous position of the pendulum where it was right here. And so that's a little better visual representation rather than just seeing things straight down. So as an animator, it helps guide you and it helps speed up your whole process. Again, you're always looking to make your life a little bit easier as an animator. It's a very difficult job to begin with. So things that you can do to help give you guides as you're going through the things that you need to do, it's very important that you want to be able to take advantage of that. So let's work this through. All right, we come to here. Same kind of thing. It's swinging down. Now it's full blown this direction. We've got a lot of swing to it. And then we come to this last keyframe. And again, we're slowing down as we come in. So it's going to straighten, but maybe not completely out. All right, and on my animation, I actually gave myself a little bit more time in my timeline. Even though I'm really animating for essentially 3 seconds, I gave myself a little more time, so I could come out here to about 84. That's about half of a second later. And I can show some overlap of the bottom of the pendulum swinging out because it still has momentum even though the top part of the pendulum has come to rest. I will put a keyframe right on that top just to make sure that it stays locked. And so we have that. So let's go ahead and we'll play this through. So that's looking pretty good, all right? And you can see how this stop motion blocking really helps you in assisting and planning out your animation. I would encourage you as you do your assignment to, you may think you like the first one, but work it through slowly and look at each of the positions and decide for yourself if that's really exactly how you want it blocked out. The other thing for the assignment is I'm kind of doing half of a figure 8 here. I would recommend not doing exactly the same path that I did, create a different kind of a path, but you definitely want to be exercising and having the pendulum move in the X and the Y axis. All right, so now let's go to the next part of the process. So the next part of the process is now we want to put interpolations on here. So we want to change these stop motion keyframes from being stop motion keyframes to being motion keyframes. And we do that very simply by going in, and I have this top one selected. I hold down the shift key and I click somewhere out here all the way down so I have everything selected, and I right click on here, and you can just use the keyboard shortcut, which is Command K, or just click the menu item. This is Set Motion Keyframe, and when I set motion keyframe, everything should be set motion. Now why didn't it do that in between there? Okay, that's interesting. Let's see, set motion keyframes. Okay, now it did it. Okay, so we have motion keyframes between everything. And now you can see little tick marks. All right, and the tick marks indicate the interpolation that Harmony is doing in between the major poses that we put in. All right, and you notice also that the distance between each one of these is equal. Harmony starts out with a linear interpolation. All right, so the speed doesn't have any easing on any of this. All right, so let's play this through, and you can see that it has put in some interpolation. There isn't a jerking that you saw from the stop motion. That being said, it's not very exciting because you can tell that there's no easing that's been put on any of this. So the way we can put our easing in is you really want, again, you want to make your life simple. And because everything is tied to this top plate, what you want to do is you want to fix the easing on the top plate first, and then fix the rest of the tail going down. So let's take a look at that. And I can go up here and just select this, and I can hit my ease parameters. And I want to come out of here fairly slow and then speed up. All right. So to do that, my easing should look like this. I can hit apply, and you can see my keys are my interpolation lines are very close together, and then they get further apart as things move out. Now, remember, the further apart the interpolation is, or the keys are, the faster something will move in time. The closer they are together, the slower. So this is exactly what I want. I want to come out fairly slow and then come right into here. So I'm going to accept this for starters and just say apply and next. All right, so coming into here, I really want this to be fairly linear. All right, and so I want the speed through here to be about the same, and then I want to slow as I come into here. So that waveform is the opposite of this one. So that says I want a waveform that probably looks about like that. And if I hit apply, we can see that. So you can see I'm very fast through here and then slow coming in. So that is exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to say apply and next. All right, the same thing here. I want to come out slow and then speed up. So I want it to look like the reverse of this, which would be like this. And let me hit apply to see if that's what I want. That is. So I'm slow coming out and I'm faster through here. So I say apply and next. Same kind of thing. I want this to look exactly like that. So I want to drag it this way. So I come out fast and then I slow going into the next one. Let me apply and look at it, and I can see that. That's exactly what we want. So we say apply and next. Same thing. Come out slow, go fast. It's a little more subtle here on this one. This is a little bit trickier. Let me hit apply. Actually, no, that's not the way I want. Let me hit apply this way. Okay, that's getting closer. So you can see what I did when I was down here and hit apply. I was fast coming out and then slow coming into here. The lines are closer together, so I'm slow there, and they're further apart, so I'm faster there. That's actually not what I want. So I change the profile, hit apply again so I can see it, and here I'm slow coming out and fast going into here. So I'm going to say apply and next. Likewise, I want this side to look like this side. This curve over here represents this side. This curve over here represents this side. So I want to come up and I want it to look like that. Hit apply. and that looks around by, let's say apply and next, and I'm just going to say close. So let's play this just for starters and see how much I've changed this. Well, that's better, okay? So you can see I have some hang time at these corners, and then it speeds up and goes through. I'm not totally happy with this, but for just a first pass, this looks okay. So now what we want to do is we want to look at the velocity graphs that you have available to you in Harmony to help edit this. So let's open this up on the pendulum and notice, okay, I didn't scroll down. I click the arrow and that scrolls down, and I can see the different hierarchy and things that are parented. What I clicked was the plus sign. So in clicking the plus sign, now I can see position X, position Y, position Z, and if there was an angle rotation on Z. All right, so I want to look at the position X in velocity and see what that looks like. I can get that by just double clicking here, and that brings up this editor. You may not have seen this editor before, or you may hopefully have seen it, excuse me, on the bouncing ball exercise. But this shows you what the velocity looks like through time. And this is actually about right. There's a couple of things I may want to change, but we can see this point is right here. Okay, this point is right about there. Okay. Here we're up at the top at that, and then we work our way around. And I can go in and I can modify things by selecting and changing the profile of how things move. Okay, it gets a little tricky because in changing the speed, I'm actually changing the path that it's taking. So I can go in, and you can see as I'm changing this angle, I'm changing whether this is straight or not. Okay, and let me select this one, and making that just a little bit wonky. All right, this actually I kind of like. You can see that it shows it kind of coming up and in to that point. All right, there's almost a little bit of a overshoot and a settling. I want to bring that back in just a little so it comes up into that point. Okay, the only thing I'm not liking is what I did here, so let me see if I can straighten that out just a little bit. There we go. All right, that's what I'm looking for. So I need to bring this up a little bit. So you can see I'm modifying that path by simply manipulating the speed that I go through on the arrows. It's a little counterintuitive. You know, you may move an arrow one direction and you can see the path that you're taking is a little bit different. You have to play with it just a little bit until you get what you're looking for. So that to me looks about like what I'm looking for. All right, so we get to that point. So then we go through here, and let me see what I got. Okay. And take this. Change this a little bit. Change that a little bit. And we can work this in right here. Let's see how that comes in. Okay, I like that for starters. So let me go in. And then the next thing you want to do is look at your position Y. So this is how we're going up and down. And you can see right here, actually, I have, let me zoom in on this. So the way you zoom is the same way you zoom in a drawing. If I hit the 2 key, I can zoom up. I hit the space bar, I can slide things down. So this looks a little bit wonky that way. Yeah, come out of there. Let me see that. Okay. So if we play this through, let's see what this looks like. Actually, that's what I was looking to do. So we've changed it considerably. And what I do is I've got some real hang time at these corners. I did that on purpose because when I go through and then animate the rest of the chain angularly going down, I can get a little more overshoot, and I can emphasize that overshoot of the bottom part and emphasize the drag on the bottom part. So like I said, you want to set the top part of the pendulum first, which we've done. All right, now let's hit stop and collapse this, and now let's look at the next joint down. And you want to do these one joint at a time. Don't try and do them all at the same time, all right? Or that actually may be a little difficult to not have to do them all at the same time, but you want to focus mostly on one, and then maybe you can adjust these a little bit as you go down. But let's go back to the beginning here, and we have our start, and we come up to about this point, and we see that come in. All right, so we come up to there. Same kind of thing. Now on this, there's not so much work that we need to do with these keys going through. You can see the adjustments came through that I did when I was working on the other one, and so those translate through. But you do want to look at the rotational velocity. So here you can see, here's where the rotation angle has changed. So we double click on that, and this is where I want to call up this rotational velocity, and I want to look at this as this goes through. So you can see here it spins very fast getting to this point, and then now it's slowing down getting into this point. All right, and I can change the magnitude of the angle. I can go in and grab this, and I can change, see how changing this value changes the position. So this is actually a good way to do this. So if I decide that I even want to start having it swing back a little bit more, I can do that. And you can basically walk your way through on each of these and take a look at how is the angle going the way that you want. You want more or less angle, right? So at this point, it came and it swung over, so you maybe want to even have it more this way. All right, so it's got more of a start right there, and then as we come down through here, it's even further. Perhaps. And then we finish out at this point, and same kind of thing. I can select this and I can slide this up. Maybe I want that a little more like that. Anyway, you get the gist of this. So by going in and working this rotational velocity, you can tweak how fast that particular section of the tail of the pendulum is moving. And then to clean this up completely, you just successively work your way all the way down the chain. Again, I don't want to be doing the homework for you, but in doing this blocking and then switching things to motion keyframes, this actually is a very rapid and fast way to get through and setting up this pendulum animation and getting you what you want. So hopefully this will help you out. This has been Phil with Phil Effects. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.